So this debate actually goes further than a sort of conservation type of matter. One often thinks that animal issues are for the big-hearted that are concerned about sort of furry and cute species. Although this is an important issue in itself, issues of sustainability, endangered species, the damage to our ecosystems and biodiversity are all implicated by animal issues as they are. Trafficked animals, yeah, so I mean, it goes further than this. For a start, the trafficked animals we're talking about include lizards, chameleons, rhinos for their horns, elephants for their tusks, and pangolins, which was celebrated the other day in World Pangolin Day. Our Foreign Secretary feted this day of the year. So, you know, none of those, pangolins are hunted for their scales. None of these are furry at all. So they are desired for their high-value body parts. And all this stuff raises questions of transnational crime and corruption. Certainly will, as my co-chair on the APPG will know, the elephant in the room on all this in the anti-corruption strategy, which thankfully has now been published, is the sort of slowness of the UK to not just encourage, but to ensure that all our overseas territories adopt public registers of beneficial interest as soon as possible. I know it's not quite this minister's remit, but if she'll pass that on to her colleagues. The supply chains are complex when we're talking about these sort of things. So there are poachers and traffickers. The ivory trade alone is estimated by the UN to be worth $62 billion in East Asia, approximately 75 tons of elephant ivory exported. And so it's not just, as you might imagine, one or two elephants being killed by rogue poachers. There is an industrial element of this as organised crime. Huge-scale shipments to foreign buyers at the other end. And people get away with it because, in the words of, his name was Tom Cardamore, appearing before the US Senate Committee on Foreign Intelligence, he said that this is low-risk, high profits. And this trade, if we can call it such, is popular with terrorist groups and militias. So it relates to what the champion was just saying, the government's anti-corruption champion. So the Sudan People's Liberation Army in South Sudan, who were a rebel group, but now they've overthrown who was in power, they've been partial to elephant poaching by grenade. And poaching of ivory is a means by which the Janjaweed militia fund their activities in that same region as well. So the illegal wildlife trade goes much wider than being simply a peripheral concern of well-meaning people concerned with the world that we leave to the next generation. The damage done is manifold, as the Honourable Member, the anti-corruption champion, just told us. The corruption that supports illegal wildlife trading poses threats to national security, as we've seen from the terror threat. And it's been seen by those who deal in it, like guns and drugs, as just another commodity and part and parcel of these organised crime networks. Bribery and corruption obscure the enforcement of existing laws. If you have these sort of quite bendable officials, that also mucks things up, and diminish effects to strengthen them. Not everyone has an anti-corruption champion in the same way that we do. Although the post was vacant for a while, I'm very glad. One of my main concerns with the anti-corruption strategy, I have it here, is the lack of strong action on open registers of beneficial ownership of our overseas territories. We've said it before. The criminal gangs do not simply traffic in animal parts, but drugs and arms. They launder their money through shell corporations. So again, it's these sort of secrecy jurisdictions, these mysterious questionable ownership properties. There are whole streets, I think, in London where we don't know who owns them, and it's dirty money. So in 2016, we were told all countries needed to reach a gold standard of public registers of beneficial interest. And David Cameron painted himself as a world leader in this, promised action. But now the Foreign Office say that they expect UK tax havens only to adopt the public register when it becomes a global standard. So I do think there's been a bit of slippage there, but I know he's done excellent work on this, and he's absolutely right that these products should not be desirable at all. People shouldn't be clamouring for them. And could the UK government send a strong message by enacting a total ban on the import of lion trophies? The numbers are not large, so hopefully this is not on an industrial scale, but the government could seize the initiative here and show real leadership. When will the obvious one that I've already raised, when will the government ensure public registers of beneficial interest are in place amongst overseas territories to fight better this type of crime? And just a final thought, really. When we leave the EU, we will be no longer bound by the EU Scientific Review Group with their high standards for live animal exports, as well as high-value body parts. And there is a worry that if we crash out, we'll only be beholden to the less stringent CITES, the Confederation of Trade in Endangered Species, which is the world standard, but not quite as stringent as the EU one. So does she know what our status will be in relation to the EU Scientific Review Group? I think the Minister is a scientist herself. Because if it is unclear and it's something up for negotiation, could we add it to the list of things like Euratom and Erasmus Plus that we're fighting to keep beyond the transition period? Because otherwise, you know, there might be a sort of WTO type situation where we crash to a lowest common denominator, or even the stuff we really applies to shared intelligence and joint operations in catching perpetrators. So if we leave Europol, this is a worry. The fingerprinting kit that IFOR pioneered, it runs for 28 days after the prints are planted on ivory. So just to catch this cross-border shifting of these ill-gotten gains over time. So as a sociologist, I'm all too aware that globalization has made the world smaller, and it helps us keep in touch across the globe with social networks and environmental trade. But sadly, this can spill over into organized crime and illegal trade in exotic species. Criminal and terrorist syndicates buying impunity for their actions, bribing corrupt officials on their way, are the stuff of McMafia. But they are widening their revenue streams and decimating animal populations. Corruption is at the heart of the illegal wildlife trade, which no less than Prince William condemned at the 2016 Hanoi Conference on the illegal wildlife trade. So responses that I've had whenever I seem to put in parliamentary questions on these sort of things, same as those bullet points, is sort of in due course, which is a bit unsatisfactory. It's not good enough anymore. The government has gone some way with this strategy, but it must act now. Thank you.